Welcome to Sitting with Sally. We're going to talk today about the emergency shelter and its trials and tribulations of it. There have been quite a few. I'd like to welcome my guest, Patti Fairfield, on my far left, the Executive Director of the Ne-Chee Friendship Center, and Dalaney Smith, Manager of the Emergency Shelter and Street Patrol. And I just thought we should go through some of the ups and downs of trying to get the shelter into its new location. Tell me about when you first heard that the shelter could no longer be with the Kenora Fellowship Center.
So, I guess I'll start off with that. So I was approached in the spring of 2015 from Kenora District Services Board about taking on the emergency shelter. They felt that it was a good fit because we were already being funded by them for the street patrol program. So thought, when they found out that the fellowship was no longer going to be able to provide it come 2016, that, this would fit in nicely with the Friendship Center and that we would be able to provide the service. So we started the process in 2015, and we're still working towards having our 24/7 shelter, which I know we're going to get into a little bit more. But yes, it's been quite the road and quite the journey.
Yes, and the Kenora Fellowship Center had done it for many years, and again with some ups and downs, because I remember a number of years there was no shelter during the summer months. They were only funded for the winter months, and then they went full years, and then they couldn't do it anymore. So first thing you did, I'm presuming, is try and find a location for the shelter.
Yes, not, in my wildest dreams did I ever think that was going to be a difficult feat. We were looking, first of all, just at leasing a space downtown, because we knew that there was a lot of space open in the downtown core. So that we started with that. We got a real estate agent, and we were finding that was not going to be viable. Many people did not want to lease.
You ran into a bit of NIMBY?
Yes, people did not want to lease for an emergency shelter.
Not in my backyard.
That's exactly. That's exactly the premise. Mm-hmm. So then it was like, okay, we're going to have to look at purchasing. So,
and just to interrupt you, so the Friendship Center at that time, Ne-Chee, was on Railway Street, good-sized building, but it isn't appropriate for a shelter.
Yeah, because they had talked to, we had a few different people ask us about, could we expand? I mean, we had the property out there to expand and to provide the shelter out there. However, it wasn't something we entertained even for a moment because it's not accessible. We were already running into issues over the years we've been there as a Friendship Center because of the accessibility issues, right? There's no sidewalk to get out there. There's no bus service, those types of things. So we knew it was not a viable option.
Anyone
That's right.
Yep. Okay.
Yeah. So then we had talked about the Friendship Center moving as well, right? We've been talking about it for a long time. So this kind of gave us the shove forward when we were, looking now to take on the shelter, to move the Friendship Center and have it as part of the shelter.
So you're thinking of having both together.
That's right, yeah.
And that makes a lot of sense.
So that's why we ended up, what building was going to be large enough downtown to be able to do that, right? So we had looked at the Bergman building just because of the size of it. We figured, okay, we could put the shelter in the basement and then the Friendship Center would occupy the next 2 floors. So, we went forward with, having the zoning amendment done. We had looked at the application form and then we were told that the City Planning Department was willing to take on that application process for us.
And that was really your first wall you came up with. The zoning bylaw did not happen.
That's right.
Back
Correct.
to the drawing board.
Yes.
And then around that time, I think it was June 2016, the mayor said that the emergency shelter situation was an emergency.
Yes.
And did that help?
It helped us in the fact that, we knew we were taking over July 1st. Mm-hmm. We had no location. We were running out of options. So it was decided
taking people home.
Yes. And, we knew we couldn't have people out in the street, right? And the Fellowship Center could not extend any longer. They said that, it was a very difficult decision for them to close in the first place. And I certainly understand that they've certainly struggled over the years. So, nothing against them at all. They did a wonderful job for as long as they could. And they were supposed to close April 1st. But they had, not their whole entire site, just the shelter portion.
Right.
But then they decided to give us till July 1st, and then that was it. They said they could not extend any longer, and we understand that, because it could have continued on and on.
I can see them saying every 3 months. So you must have been quite desperate then.
We were very desperate.
Wow.
So we were thinking, what could we do? So then we decided, I'm not even sure where it came about approaching Knox Church. about their basement. So that's how that, we were looking at very temporary, 3 months.
Just July, August, September.
Yeah,
Yes.
and then we would be moved out in October,
Okay.
right?
And because the mayor had declared it an emergency, did that help allow you to use Knox as a temporary shelter at that time?
Yes, because their zoning wasn't zoned correctly to have a shelter there as well. But because of the state of emergency, it allowed us to be able to operate out of there, right? Which moves us into the next thing of, being able to operate out of the Northwestern Health Unit starting in October of 2016.
And how did you find out that they would be willing?
You know what, we were looking at, there's a house located beside the health unit. We started with that. It was brought to our attention. We went and looked at it and said, absolutely, this would not work. The way it was built, we couldn't run a shelter out of there. So then, I think it was just discussions that Henry Wall had with the CEO of the health unit. And then, of course, from there, right, that wasn't our end of things to work that out. That was something Henry Wall did with Mr. Dalaney, who owns the building.
Okay, and
so-
Henry is the CEO of the Kenora District.
Yes,
Service
he
Network.
is.
Yeah. And he's been very supportive. and
Very.
Very instrumental.
A mover and a shaker.
Oh, that he is, definitely.
So since when did they move into the Northwest Health Unit?
That was October 18th, I believe, of 2016.
And you've been
Coming up
waiting
2
since then
years.
to get your permanent space.
We have.
Yeah. And why is besides it's temporary, why isn't it adequate where they are?
Oh gosh, the location alone, there's a big hill for people with mobility issues. It is a very small space, and it's just not equipped for what we need. There's no kitchen. It's basically a big room with mats on the floor. The staff is in the same room as the patrons, so there's no privacy. There's not a good ventilation system.
So it's really temporary.
Very, yes.
And you're anxious to move forward.
We sure are.
Yes. How did you find the present location, which is going to be Knox United basement area?
So, this discussions that Henry and I had, because we knew that in October of 2018, we were going to have to be moved out of the health unit. We had to have, another location to go to. We wanted to be permanent, not just another place we were going to temporarily be in. So we've been actively in discussions for the last couple of years about where we were going to have this shelter located. And we knew we needed it to be in the downtown core, right?
And
So
at the time, I'm sure you thought 2 years was going to be enough time.
Oh, we
For
did.
sure.
We did.
Yeah.
I mean, we knew it was going to go by quickly, but we felt that was certainly enough a time to find something. But 2 years does go by very quickly, and trying to find something that's large enough to house the shelter and to have it accessible and be downtown, not easy. We knew we were going to have to go through zoning again, right? But Henry had a couple of locations in mind, and to be honest with you, I really pushed him for the Knox. I just felt that was our best location, just because of where it's situated. It's not right downtown, but it's certainly close enough to the downtown core, close to the Friendship Center with all of our programming, and many of the other services that people that would access the shelter would need. So to me, it was just the best fit.
Okay. And this time the bylaw change went through very well. We're going to take a short break, and then I'd like you to talk about how you got people on side. So people in Knox, the residents and the businesses, because I think that was part of the plan before you moved there.
Yes.
Okay, so please stay tuned, because it's very exciting learning about how the shelter evolved. Welcome back to Sitting with Sally. We are talking about how the emergency shelter, which is to be in the Knox Annex, evolved. And Patti, you were telling me, or you were going to talk about the consultation before with the people, before you decided on Knox, the consultations you had with the community.
Yes, I mean, we really, Henry and I talked a lot about the approach and how we were going to do things differently than we did the first time around when we were trying to get the zoning changed. And, obviously this time it worked. But we really felt that coming from 3 different perspectives, so, having the church involved, Kenora District Services Board, and the Friendship Center, we all came with our own unique part of that education piece to the community. So we, we held different meetings. We held meetings with business owners that were in the area, for residents, town council, just to talk about how this shelter was going to be different than anything we've ever seen before, and the benefits that it was going to make for the community. So not only was this going to be instrumental to those individuals who are going to utilize the shelter, but what it was going to mean to Kenora as a community.
It's
a
going
whole.
to change the community for the better, I think.
Yes, definitely.
Absolutely.
And do you recall what some of the comments were from some people who had concerns?
Green space.
Yeah,
Green
that's a big
space was a
one.
huge issue. You know, people worrying about property values.
Parking.
Parking, yeah. Those kinds of things. And I mean, obviously we do our best to ease people, but I mean, we don't know for sure, right, either. I mean, things come up and sometimes we think we've handled things to the best of our
Right.
ability. But I think that, you know, we certainly are always open and we tell people, you know, if you have an issue or concern, please bring it forward right away and we will do our best.
Yes.
And
to-
Dalaney, I'm sure that while it's been temporary at the health unit, there have been some issues. Can you just talk about that a little bit?
Yeah, there have. Right from the beginning, there's been some of the neighbors have not liked the loitering around because the shelter opens at 8 every evening, and when it's extremely cold, extremely hot out, people wanting to get out of the elements, and so, you know, they'll start lining up, you know, close to 6 o'clock, but really they're not causing any kind of issues, just standing outside, and that is tough to watch from anyone. You're in the safety and warmth of your home, and there's people standing outside for hours at a time, and there's been little issues with
And that will disappear because you're going to have it
It will.
24/7.
Yes. Yeah.
Sorry, and there've been other issues?
Yeah, a few, just very little issues. One of them being outside messes, we could say, by the church and by the health unit, but that's, you know, there've been some complaints, but we've got those ironed out between KDSB and my staff at the shelter doing checks,
Outside
morning
checks,
checks.
yeah.
Yep.
And I would think one of the problems is that when people are outside of the shelter in downtown, there are very few public washrooms.
There are very few, and that is one of the big issues. And you know, you do get people that are wander up there in the daytime, trying the shelter doors. We're not open, and you have to go to the washroom. You have to go to the washroom.
And moving forward to the shelter in its new to be location. So you've been working with Henry Wall to get things in place, and what are some of the next steps?
So, well, now, I mean, we do need to fine tune some things. I mean, we know we have a location, right, and it's currently being renovated.
And renovated, and
Yes,
renovated.
and renovated. And
Big
you know,
renos.
we're hoping in the near future that it will be complete. Nothing ever happens in the timelines that we hope it's going to happen in, but
Yes, so the October 2018 deadline
has been
is not
extended.
going to be
Absolutely.
met.
That's right.
But you're looking for sometime in the new year.
Yes. Yes. So we're very excited about that. But I mean, we've talked about, you know, things that we need to sit down with Kenora District Services Board and discuss, because we don't know how things are completely going to look for meals. All of those fine tuning things we need to get ironed out before then. So that's something we'll be sitting down, and Dalaney will be an instrumental part of those conversations now, with her switching from being a coordinator into a manager position. So.
And I think you mentioned when we weren't on air about talking about that you think ongoing consultations are going to be part of that too.
Yes, right from the get-go, we've had myself and a member of the Northwestern Health Unit and KDSB. We can go do, and we do neighborhood consultations just to make sure everything's running smoothly. Any complaints we can address, and we will continue that at the Northwestern Health Unit location, as well as start doing canvasses closer to Knox.
It sounds like it's really important that you be a good neighbor, if you like, that the shelter becomes a good neighbor.
Absolutely. We want this to be a positive experience, not just for the patrons, but for the community of Kenora. And I think having a 24/7 facility, so there's a safe place for patrons to be.
Okay. So I want you to explain what a 24/7 facility means, but is there anything else, Patti, that you want to talk about getting to the new location, or have we covered most of it?
I think that we've covered most of it. I'm just, you know, very ecstatic that we're finally going, you know, we're seeing light, that this is actually going to happen. You know, a little bit of a delay, but we know that, you know, this is being worked on. We know that we're going to have a permanent location. 20-year lease was signed. So we know for sure 20 years we're going to be in this location. And I really do honestly feel from the bottom of my heart that this is going to be very beneficial for everyone. So.
It'll have its bumps, but yes.
Of course.
Yes.
Everything has
Like
its
everything
bumps.
does.
Everything does, but it's great that it's going to be a permanent location.
Yeah.
That's right.
A huge relief. So what is a 24/7 shelter?
Well, I think personally the biggest thing is that it's not just a place to rest your head at night. You can get out of the elements anytime during the day. There'll be day programming, there's meals, there's washrooms. People can just pop in for a little bit, pop in for the day, whatever they need. Just knowing that there's a safe place to go to.
And I think that before, a shelter really has been a place someone can stay overnight, but you're talking about looking at patrons their whole lives and how they can be improved.
Yes, yeah, really, and getting them involved in, day-to-day things. It would be great if you have some of the patrons helping out in there and making, although it is a shelter, we do want it to feel like a home type atmosphere, and having them help out in the kitchen, help out with cleaning, get up and take pride in their space. And they will have space, not just a mat on the floor now. There'll be little cubicles, have some dignity.
So they'll have private space.
Yes.
And cubicles and place to keep their stuff too.
Yes, lockers for their stuff, during the day.
And I think it's instrumental too. We've talked about this. I mean, the difference too as well is working with the patrons. So bringing these services in, so that it's to help them find permanent housing, right? Whatever housing means to them, but life skills, all of those things. And we know, to be realistic, we know there's some who will call the shelter home until they pass on. But for many, we feel very confident that for bringing Friendship Center programs in and other external programs into the shelter will really help individuals, right, to not have to utilize the shelter for the rest of their lives, right?
Make that
because that's the
change,
ultimate goal.
To get into your own space.
Yes.
That's right.
And life skills can be hugely important.
Oh, absolutely.
And I know, Patti, you've mentioned to me before things like mental health people coming in and perhaps health professionals as well.
Yes. Yeah, most definitely. So that's another thing we've never seen before, right? So that's why it's very exciting as well that, and to be able to build the partnerships, because we have to do this as a community. It's not just the Friendship Center, it's not just Kenora District Services Board, it's not just Knox United Church, it's all of us and everybody else in the community as well, right? Contributing to the success of the shelter.
I'm going to take another short break, and when we come back, we'll hear more about what the new shelter will be like. Welcome back to Sitting with Sallie. We're talking about the emergency shelter that will be in the Knox Annex, and Ne-Chee Friendship Center is taking over. And as we know, along with the shelter, food has always been a big component of feeding people in Kenora. A number of different organizations, church groups have done it. There's been different days, and sometimes there's one day that's missed, and it's here and there. That's going to change.
Yes, it is. We're very excited about that. Although we don't know all the finer details, but all meals will be out of the shelter, and so our hopes are that we have a lot of the same volunteers and maybe some new ones on board, and breakfast, lunch, and supper every day, and so the patrons will know that every day that's where they can come and they will get a good meal.
And you're also going to welcome people who aren't necessarily staying at the shelter.
Yes, yeah, it's open to anybody.
Yeah. Both as volunteers or to come and have a meal.
Yeah.
Meet a few people.
That's right.
And you're going to be able to use the kitchens, which I know Agape used to use. Are they being modified
Yes.
somewhat?
Yeah.
But good kitchen space.
Yes.
Dalaney, can you talk about what's it like to be staff in the shelter?
Stressful. It's a big job. I mean, you're working nights. They'll now be working days and nights, of course. But you have your basic regular that I guess most people would think. They do their intakes, their bed checks, the cleanup in the shelter. But on top of that, they're really there. They're nurses. They are counselors. You never know on any given night what's going to come your way, and they handle all sorts of things.
And one of the things that must be better, because you said at the health unit, they're actually in the sleeping area.
They are. Yeah.
And that's going to change.
Yes, they're going to have their own little office cubicle space. So they'll be completely removed from the patrons, which I think benefits both the staff and patrons.
And you're also the manager of the street patrol. Are some of the staff from street patrol, are they also moved into the shelter work?
Yes, actually the full-time shelter workers that we have right now, we're all street patrol, previous street patrol. So they stepped into that role nicely. And they know a lot of the patrons already, and they have that connection.
They must develop
them.
quite a good relationship with
They
them.
do. They've known a lot of them for many years, and it's actually quite neat to see the interaction.
How many beds or how many cubicles? How does this?
We will have 44, a gender-neutral space as well, and a family transition.
Yeah, so
little
we're
room.
looking at perhaps having more transitional housing upstairs on the second floor. That's something will come later. For now, there's going to be some space up there though, so if we have a family passing through town with children, that they will be off in a private space. As well, when we talked about the gender neutral space, we have a few spaces on the main floor, but we thought we might have, if we need additional space, we will have them upstairs as well. And also washrooms, gender neutral washrooms as well. So there'll be a ladies area, I think there's like 3
Yes.
stalls,
Yeah.
certain
think
shower
so.
areas as well as the men's, and then the gender neutral space.
So that's, yes.
That's going to be really,
And being able to house family is huge.
Oh, it is.
Yes.
That's right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I realize that the transitional is not going to happen right away, but just can you explain what a transitional unit is?
so it's almost like a self-contained, it's like, I call it like an apartment.
Yeah.
It's just they don't have a place to cook their meals, but it's more of a permanent, it's a permanent residence, so it's moving from the shelter into transitional housing, and then getting them prepared to get into permanent housing.
It's
I'll
almost
call
like a learning step.
It
Yeah.
is.
Yeah,
Yeah,
when
and they still have the
somebody-
benefit of having
Yeah.
people there to assist them with any services or things that they might need before they actually make that final move into their own residence.
Great. And anything else you can think about that we haven't really talked about with shelter itself, the staff? I mean, some of the job must be, oh, I know, that's what, bed bugs. What are you going to do about making sure bed bugs don't happen?
Up to this point, knock on wood, we've been lucky, but staff they're very thorough with their cleaning. And I do have spray and bed bug traps there, but we will have a steamer similar to what Detox uses, which is very good. And KDSB has even spoken with me about having exterminators come in to do a monthly sweep.
Okay, so
Yeah.
you've been lucky in being able not to. Yes,
Yes.
excellent, because I know you have to be quite vigilant with them.
Yes, very.
Yeah,
And I do have staff that is very on top of that.
I'm
so,
sure, yes.
Yes.
And education, Patti, you had mentioned to me that you really think education is important.
I think education is a huge piece. We talked about the difference of the first time of when we were trying to get our zoning amendment done, and that didn't go over as well as we had hoped because it didn't happen. And the second time around, we really felt we wanted to come at it from a different angle, as I had spoken about. And I think education is huge. I think it's key. So I always say, anybody, sometimes misinformation happens and people get
And
the
myths
wrong
and myths.
information. Yeah, it's almost like starting a rumor, right? And as it gets down the line, it just gets worse and worse, and it's so far from what's accurate. So I always say, please, if you have any concerns, any issues, or things you just want to talk about or ask, please get a hold of us at the Friendship Center, and we'd be more than happy to do our best to explain how things work, just to clear up a lot of that misperception that tends to happen.
And it might even be a good idea to come and have a meal.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I always say yes.
Yeah.
Come in,
Come into the space
or volunteer.
and see. Yeah.
Yes, or volunteer, but sometimes people don't want to make that commitment, but come and meet some people, meet the
Yeah.
staff. And
Yeah.
Yeah, I have to say, I just wanted to throw in that Dalaney and I just were in Winnipeg a week ago touring the Main Street Project, which is a homeless shelter. And wow, we were, on Silo Mission as well,
Yeah.
we were amazed at the work that gets done there and what they have to face each and every day. But while we were able to take some things from them that we'll, be able to incorporate here into our shelter as well. But I was impressed with the volunteers. I think Silo
Yeah.
Mission,
Oh.
they're serving 500 to 600 people a day.
Wow.
And it's
Yeah.
all volunteers.
Yeah.
And all their food is donated. It's donated from grocery stores, farmers. It's amazing.
Yeah.
So we really are hoping that people will come on board and volunteer,
Absolutely.
because volunteerism is huge.
Yeah.
Right? We
Well,
really,
it sounds like you've got a good model to look to.
yes,
Absolutely,
definitely.
we do.
Yeah.
Well, it's been an incredible journey of the shelter as it's wound its way and to finally land in a really good spot.
Yes.
Yes.
You must be so excited.
We're
We
very
are.
excited.
Can't wait till the doors open.
Yes.
Yes. And we're hoping to have people come in and do a tour.
Yeah.
Officially, I'm not sure if it'll happen right before we open our doors
Yeah.
to the public, but yeah, we
So
want
that will be announced and everything.
Yeah, definitely.
Well, thank you both for coming in and talking about the shelter. Good
Thank
luck
you.
with it, and hopefully the delay won't be too long.
Yes.
Thank you, Sallie.
My pleasure. And thank you for watching Sitting with Sallie. If you haven't ever gone down to an emergency shelter once this one opens, think about it because it's a really important part of our community. So until next time.